All right. How many people have seen the movie Beavis and Butthead Do America? Pretty good movie. Although it's a very ignorant, sort of MTV depiction of it, there is a part where Beavis is extremely dehydrated and he's crawling through the desert, and he stumbles upon a cactus, and of course, in his hilarious idiocy, he decides to eat it because he's dying, right? Well, that cactus is the Lophophora williamsi, or the peyote cactus. And even more interesting is the fact that peyote is still taken as a sacrament by over 250,000 Native Americans to this day. Today I will be explaining some of the main facets of the Native American sacramental peyote religion. I've always been fascinated with different sacraments like ayahuasca in the South American region, and peyote in the Mexican and Southern Texas region, and I'm a botany major, and particularly fascinated with the Cactaceae, or the cactus family in general. So this has always been a topic of interest for me, and one that I've researched a lot on my own. This is actually relatable to you guys, in that a lot of people don't realize that in modern day NAC, or Native American church ceremonies, they're actually taking peyote as the communion. So when they say, this is my body, partake of it, or whatever, I haven't been to church in years, but whatever it is that they say, they're actually eating peyote instead of crackers or bread, or whatever it typically is. So it's actually often practiced hand in hand with even such strict Christian religions as Catholicism. Some of the main points I'll be talking about today are a brief look at peyote as a cactus and a plant in general, and where it's from, how and why the peyote religion originally became popularized, religious persecution of the peyote sacrament by the U.S. government, and a general overview of a typical peyote ceremony. First, I would like to talk about the Lophophora williamsi, or peyote cactus, as a plant in general, and explain a bit about what it is and what causes its hallucinogenic effects. Peyote is a type of globular or small circular-shaped low-dwelling cactus that is indigenous to the Chihuahuan Desert, specifically in areas of the Rio Grande Valley in southern Texas and as far south as the state of San Luis Potosi in Mexico. The Nahuatl, or the ancient Aztec language word for it, is peyote, which I thought was kind of interesting. It sounds a lot like the actual name of the language itself. Peyote contains a psychoactive substance that's in the phenethylamine class of chemicals. It's called mescaline, is the main constituent, although it contains like over 50 different alkaloids in general. The main one is, of course, mescaline. And the very interesting thing about mescaline to me is that it's actually very similar molecularly, structurally, to our own human adrenaline and epinephrine and norepinephrine. Although, of course, doesn't have the same effects because, mescaline makes you hallucinate, and adrenaline, of course, does not. But they both act on the same receptors in the brain and whatnot. Its known history dates back to as far as 5000 BC, so they've seen hieroglyphs and stuff like that as far back as that, and its definite known use, it's been used for over 3,000 years. Next, I would like to move on to how and why the peyote religion became even more popular. This man right here is Quanah Parker. He's the man who helped spread the peyote religion to Native Americans. That there says that he helped spread it. I use the word popularized because I think that that's more accurate. Like I said, it was already being done for like 3,000 years. But in the 1880s, he was given peyote while dying of an illness, and he claimed to have a vision from Christ, saying that peyote was basically the solve all for all the Native Americans' problems, and that it would help them it would help them get away from alcohol use and some of the more violent actions that they were partaking in at the time. And that they should use it to gain spiritual insight, to get closer to God and encourage self-sufficiency and a deep commitment to family. Parker is most famous for saying the white man goes into his church house and talks about Jesus, and the Indian goes into his teepee and talks to Jesus, which I thought was pretty funny and pretty accurate, I guess. Next, I'd like to talk about the religious persecution of the peyote religion by the U.S. government. Also in the 1880s, the U.S. government banned the Native American use of peyote after becoming increasingly aware of its widespread use and being concerned about its psychoactive effects. So, after we'd given them all, the reservations, and we basically said, you keep your way of life and we'll have ours, right, we once again intruded upon them. The DEA specifically, I believe, or what was to become the DEA, more accurately, went in and raided their ceremonies and actually, arrested extremely elderly, 80 and 90-year-old shaman. A lot of the guys died in prison and stuff like that. It was very sad. It wasn't until August 11th, 1978 that the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was passed, basically stating that Congress found and declared that ceremonial peyote use by the Native Americans is integral to their way of life and their culture, and therefore permissible by U.S. law by members of the NAC, or the Native American Church. Next, I'd like to go over a general overview of a Native American peyote ceremony. In a typical peyote meeting, which varies among tribes, 25 to 30 individuals gather on a Saturday evening around a fire in a teepee or similar structure. A roadman, or an officiator of the ritual, basically a shaman, addresses the members, and peyote in raw, crushed, or liquid form is passed around and consumed. The members sing, drum, pray, and meditate until dawn, experiencing an array of phenomenon from feeling closer to God and seeing visions of dead relatives. After the meeting, a large meal is eaten. That particular quote that I read right there doesn't mention it, but the reason why the large meal is eaten is usually they're also in the teepee, and there's hot coals pretty much over most of the center floor, as well as these heat rocks, and there's kind of this shaman going around pouring water on it, and sometimes this is done for a full 48 hours before they even take for the night that they actually take the peyote. So they're dehydrated and hungry and just just completely exhausted, and then they take peyote 5 times throughout an evening. It seems like quite the physical ordeal. The reason why they do it 5 times is because it represents the 5 points of the compass and then Mother Sky. So 5 is a very sacred number to a lot of Native American sects. Everything in the ceremony is effeminate in nature. You'll see this symbol a lot, the triangular symbol, which I've even stumbled across research in even in ancient Egyptian culture. That's a symbol that's effeminate in nature. I mean, for obvious reasons that I of course won't point out, but it represents childbirth and things like that. So that symbol is very prevalent. Also the circular shape, the shape of the teepee, the fact that they usually arrange the teepees in a circle, that's all significant as well because of pantheism, which is the Native American belief in that everything is circular in nature, the circle of life, sort of almost like karma and all of that. It's a very beautiful religion. To summarize, I've talked about peyote as a cactus in general, where it's from, how and why it became more popular, religious persecution, and a general overview of a typical ceremony. In conclusion, I hope that I've informed everyone of a very interesting religious experience that is still practiced by the Native Americans to this day. I find the religious use of peyote extremely fascinating, and I hope everyone has enjoyed hearing a summary of it.
So Brian, what did you think?
I think it was well, the organization was well and whatnot, and it was, I thought it was interesting to see how, what it does, affects, and how the Indians use it, and how long or so they have been using it. But the visuals were good, just the first half of your speech, I was wondering what a peyote is, what it looks like, so maybe if you had that picture described it in the beginning, I would like it would have been better. But yeah, overall, I think it was well.
Put together.
Yeah, it's all put together.
All right, I thought the opening was fine. The subject's identified, and you have a good explanation about why it's relevant both to you and maybe to the audience. Your goal is pretty clearly stated, so you're in good shape there. You know, you've got some information early on that I thought was interesting about the number of people who are practicing. One of the things that I did notice is that there's not much citation of where the information came from during the speech, and I think you want to be a little bit more consistent about that. The main points were laid out pretty clearly, so there's a good preview. And then there's some factual data that you're providing us, and again, that's a place where I think we could use some citation. This is probably where Brian's talking about. It might have been helpful to have that visual image earlier, and I can see the point that he's making there. I think that's probably a good suggestion. The first visual that we get is actually on that second point when you're talking about the historical development of peyote as this kind of religious, you know, the popularization, the way you referred to it. I thought that that was okay, and you know, you do give us good information on that particular point. You got a couple of stories to tell there, and that makes some sense, and it was pretty easy to understand there. Like I said, I did think, for instance, that it might have helped to have a little bit more of the visual information earlier in the speech so that we got that background on like the chemical components and, you know, what the cactus actually looks like, and maybe even the way it's consumed. Just a little bit of background on it before you got to the religious element, which I know is the main focus of your speech, but context, it appears we could use a little bit of help there. The peyote meeting is described in pretty good detail. You have a quote that you use that you've got actually on the slide, and again, I don't get an attribution for that quote, so that seemed a little bit strange. The last section, though, did seem like you were skipping over some material pretty quickly. I thought all of the images were large and easy to see when they came up. They needed to be integrated a little bit more earlier in the process, but when you were using them during the process, what you had there was fine. I thought that you did a very nice job talking to the audience. You spoke at a level that's appropriate for the audience's knowledge of the subject, or their likely knowledge of the subject. I mean, maybe a little bit over time, not a lot over time. So, you know, that's one of those things that happens. You want to be a little bit more controlled for that, but I wouldn't be panicky about anything there. All right, thank you.